Hello, and thanks for joining me for The Culture Show. My guest today is known for his independent, direct storytelling that's anything but Hollywood. Hailé Gerima makes films about Ethiopia's struggle. His best known is the acclaimed Sankofa, which won a stack of international awards, including the Golden Bear at the Berlin Film Festival. His latest work is called Teza, and I'm really pleased to say Hailé Gerima joins us now. Welcome to France 24.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, I wanted to start by asking you about something you once said. You said cinema as a weapon. Explain that to us.
Well, all battles or struggles or conflicts begin from story. Whose story are we telling? And especially Africa, for a long time, a 400 history of colonial storytelling, and we have had not our fair chance, especially in film. Although we do it around the fire with our grandmothers and mothers and fathers, we've never told the world our side of the story. And so for me, it's a weapon. The camera itself is a weapon because you are sending a story, claiming your story, and saying, I do exist. And for me, it's a much better weapon than the so many guns we have in the world.
Now, Teza is your 11th film.
Yes.
It was 14 years in the making.
Not in the making, raising the money.
Raising the money,
yeah.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about what it's about.
Well, it's about really, in general, about the displacement of the African intellectual. As far as my own generational experience, we were sent abroad to find, to bring modernization as if it's a simple journey to go fetch water. And so the complicated human relationships we go through when we go abroad with human beings becomes one of the most interesting part of this journey. Yet we are to deny it for this higher mission. And so it's really about being suspended, not being here, not being there, but for me, an untold story about many Africans who are looked as immigrants, problem, pressure, but nobody knows their inner turmoil.
And is it a little bit autobiographical?
It feeds off. My own story feeds into it, but I would prefer to say a collective biography in a smaller scale.
Okay, well, let's have a look at a clip from the film. We can now see this is where the main character, Amberba, watches soldiers take a young boy, conscript a young boy, and then attack his mother.
Yeah, again, this is the biggest problem across Africa. Young people, unlike my generation, when we were young, we had the best of time. The environment was there, the wild fruits were there, we played a lot. Now, young people are pressured to be men. They could not afford to remain children and have their childhood realized or enjoyed. They are always conscripted and snatched into the battles that an elite in Africa has failed to be history makers. And so it's really part of the bankrupt political climate from South Africa to Gambia to Ethiopia to Ghana. We have this elite that is really manufactured to be imitated than innovative history makers. And therefore they create these false wars between each other and then endanger these young people.
Okay, well, let's have a look at this very powerful moment in the film.
Thank you.
እሺ መጣው ታያ ሳትቀር ትንሽ አርሼ ልምጣ ኧረ ወርቁ መጥቶፍ አንቺ አሳዘኝ ቢነግሩሽ ማሰብ ያሳዘኝ ራስሽ ነው ተመታሽ። 19
There we go. Now, with your work, it seems that you want to tell stories about Ethiopia as it really exists, not as how Westerners see it. Do you think that the film industry fails to represent the world as it really is?
Oh, yeah, for years. From the 100 years history of cinema, we have been just fixtures of Western Romeo and Juliets. We are just the chair, the furniture. Our humanity has never been, depicted, in my view, because we are at the disposal of active Euro-American love story or war, whatever it is. The principal characters are always Euro-Americans, and therefore Africans have always been just the backgrounds. We just hardly breathe in the movies, and so when we get the opportunity, I think we should profile our human face and see what comes out of it.
Who is it that you want to watch your films? It's not necessarily for white people, is it? Is it just for black people?
Oh, no. For those gutsy folks who dare to walk a very alternative film that does not appease to their condition. As far as I'm concerned, even Western people are conditioned into this shallow 3-act formula of motion picture that has not really allowed even young Europeans to explore the power of cinema. So for me, first, in fact, it's really for me to, of course, a very expensive medium, but I want to exercise so much within my own self, and even if nobody showed it, I am going to fight for years to make that movie. Although I've been lucky that people who are hungered have been able to see it. Now, throughout Europe, the film is doing very well. Again, this shows there are human beings who would cross over and see other experiences.
But the mainstream, it's never really been something that you've strived for, has it?
No, I was in fact at UCLA, just next door to Hollywood, never stepped foot there. I was earlier around a lot of Latin American, African, and third world filmmakers, alternatively looking for another way of expressing ourselves. So from the outset, as soon as I discovered cinema, I was going to go this route, pay the price to make the films I want to make.
You have been teaching for more than 30 years.
Yes.
In the United States. We're running out of time, but briefly tell us, what do you teach your students about how to be a good filmmaker?
To empower their own true self, their own grandmother, the things they know, not to imitate, but really be innovative and respond to their true heart. For me, that is, in fact, I don't teach really per se. I just try to explore and make them discover their own capacity and how unique their own story is. It doesn't have to look like the mainstream formula cinema. It can look different and still find its own community.
Okay, Hailé Gerima, we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us.
Thank you for having me, seriously.
That brings us to the end of today's Culture Show. I'll see you tomorrow for more culture from around the world.